Welcome to Talk to Connect, the podcast where we explore how to have transformative engagement to create stronger personal and professional relationships. I created this podcast because connection with others has become more difficult in this time of heavy social media, differing viewpoints, and increased anxiety in the world. I'm your host, Michelle Franklin, so let's talk to connect. In celebration of the milestone of hitting 100,000 subscribers of Talk to Connect across all platforms, I decided to do a rebroadcast of the episode that started this journey. Enjoy. This first episode is foundational as we unpack what a hard conversation really is, why it matters, and how you can begin showing up with more authenticity, courage, and connection. Whether at home or at work, Talk to Connect will explore real stories and give you practical tools and simple ways to navigate tough conversations while creating trust and connection. So, why do we avoid hard conversations? So, let's start with the truth. Most of us avoid hard conversations. We either hope the issue will just fade away or we convince ourselves it's not worth the discomfort. But silence doesn't solve anything, it just stores resentment. And then when we finally speak up, it's often too late, too emotional, or too reactive. Then by the time we do speak up, it becomes more about our own frustration with the person versus being about them and helping them develop and grow in the case of a staff member or team. So, whether you're a parent, partner, or leader, your ability to communicate with clarity and compassion is one of the most powerful tools you have. That's why I created the H.A.R.D framework. H for heart, truly wanting what is best for them. A for appreciation, acknowledge and speak to their potential. R for real, share your own real story. D for direct, be straightforward about the issue. Now, this isn't a step by step formula and it's not sequential. It's a mindset, a way of being. And today we're going to walk through how it shows up before, during, and after a hard conversation. Now, before the conversation, you have some pre work to do. And this pre work addresses the H for heart. There are a set of questions you have to ask yourself to really go in deep to that potentially dark place on your real feelings about this person. So the questions are: am I annoyed or frustrated with this person? Do they trigger me? Do they remind me of someone from my past? Do I see a part of myself in them that I don't like? So sit with those questions, reflect, because if you don't, your energy towards them will speak much more louder than your words, and especially in relationships where you hold more power, like being a parent or a supervisor. Your energy can either build trust or shut someone down. Now, after asking yourself those questions, you then want to consider what else might be going on for them. Trauma, stress, low self esteem. Maybe they're overcompensating. Maybe they're hurting. And remember, hurting people hurt others. Now, this isn't about excusing behavior, it is about understanding it. Because when you shift your lens from frustration to curiosity, your energy changes so that you can work with the issue in a healthier, less reactive way. The last part of this pre work is self talk. This self talk consists of you telling yourself that you really do want what's best for them, that you want to help them grow and thrive and show up in the world as their best self. So, this is an opportunity to possibly be the first person ever to give them real feedback. Because how often do we really do that for each other in a genuine way? Now, all of this pre work addresses the H to get your heart right for the conversation. Because when there's something festering and unresolved, you both feel it. Now, you may pretend that you don't, and they may still be cordial and go along with pretending, but they know. They might not be able to put their finger right on whatever it is, but the feeling that something is off is present because we're connected. So, to summarize, you genuinely want what's best for the person, and you have genuine curiosity on why they do what they do, and don't presume that you know. Now, before the conversation is to begin, you want to ground yourself. So sit in a chair, feet on the floor, and take a couple of deep breaths and check in with your body. Because in a high stakes moment, what we hear can be misinterpreted. What we see, we can ignore. And what we think can be misleading, as we can excuse it or make up a story about why we're thinking what we're thinking. But the sensations that occur automatically in our body don't lie. And we have very little control over that. And it's probably indicating a much more truer response of how we are feeling during the conversation. That knot in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, it's telling you something. Checking in with yourself during the conversation is important so you can be fully present and authentic, because people can feel that from you, which sometimes can actually contribute to them mirroring that back. Now, I'm not here to put my faith on anyone. I'm just sharing what is part of my process. And literally 2 minutes before I see the person to have the hard conversation, in my mind, I say a quick 15 to 20-second prayer, usually something to the effect of, please use me to say what this person needs to hear, and have it not be about me, but about supporting them. If prayer is not your thing, try this. I give myself permission to speak authentically and walk away feeling clean. So, this is your last thought just before the conversation starts. And what this does is it allows your mindset, your energy, and your mental space to all be in alignment and focused on supporting the person. And that it's not about winning, it's about connecting. Now, starting the conversation. To start off, you may want to say something to the effect of, I want to have a coaching conversation. So they already know from the outset what type of conversation this will be, and likely will cause some discomfort. Remember, I said it's not sequential. So early in the conversation will be the D for direct. No sugarcoating, no dancing around the issue. So you might say, I'm curious, can you tell me about what happened? And if it's something that actually impacted you personally, having some anger or hurt, because let's face it, you're human too, you may want to add, I know how I experienced it, or I know how it felt for me, but I want to understand what you were wanting to accomplish when you did X or said X. This isn't confrontation, it's clarity. Now, at some point in the conversation, and this needs to happen with intentionality and organically, another use of the H for heart, you may say, I want you to show up as your best self. And then, depending on the situation, you might add the sentence, and with this particular situation, I'm not seeing that. And I would imagine that's not how you want to show up or be perceived. Now, during my podcast, you'll likely hear me often say the phrase with intentionality and organically. And that is purposeful on my part, because I find sometimes people think the two don't go together. So it simply means you don't want to script when to say something, but you want to look for opportunities to say it. Now, if you are in a leadership position, navigating, providing hard feedback to more than one team member because they are experiencing a conflict with each other, you may want to give an analogy on your role as a leader. And it's also a good reminder for you as well. The analogy that I came up with that I like to use is that if there's a car accident, say a fender bender, My role is to be a drone hovering above the intersection, while the people on the opposite sides of the street have different perspectives from their own personal vantage point. As a leader, I'm to have a vantage point that doesn't favor one perspective over the other, but that takes into account the entire situation with knowledge and information often not known by the others. So, in the case of the fender bender at the intersection, a silver car and a black car. One person walking at the intersection says it was the person in the black car's fault because the woman was dancing and not paying attention. And they will stand firm that that is exactly what they saw. Now, the person on the opposite corner says, it was the fault of the woman in the black car because I saw everything and she was looking down on her phone, and they are absolutely positively adamant that they are correct. But you, as the leader, are to have a 100-foot perspective. So, in getting different angles from the drone, you can see that actually the woman in the black car was neither dancing nor on her phone, that her 2-year-old had just managed to unbuckle their car seat and was trying to climb into the front seat. And the woman was using her right hand to try to get the toddler back in their seat while still driving with the other hand. The point is, as a leader, you are there to support your team in growing themselves professionally. And that does entail helping them see perspectives that they don't have when there is a conflict on the team. Now, there's a lot we can do ourselves towards personal growth. We can read self-help books, we can attend personal development seminars, therapy, all that is true. But there are also areas we don't see and don't know about that we'll actually never know about until someone brings it to our attention. And having the honesty of others and sharing how they experience us is golden. And this will likely be an episode on its own, knowing when to take feedback from others or when to actually treat it with a grain of salt. Because I'm not saying everyone's feedback for you and about you is treated equally. Now, R for real. Sharing a real story about yourself. So, somewhere usually mid conversation is around the time to intentionally but organically bring in the R for real and share with them a real story of you going through a similar situation and lessons that you learned. Something vulnerable, something true. Have it be something, though, that is appropriately vulnerable. So, side note, doing this makes a deposit into the trust bank. And this will likely be an entire episode on ways to make deposits into the trust bank. And what is the trust bank, you ask? Well, it's where you do or say things that build up your trust account with another person. So when it is time for a withdrawal, that hard conversation, you can do so. And just like a regular bank, you can't withdraw if there's nothing there. And as a leader, parent, or spouse, you want to be intentional on making deposits into the trust bank. Now, word of caution. You do want to be careful about doing this with someone you think may use that information against you. In that instance, you may want to go with something that is still vulnerable, but that if the whole world were to know, including your boss, it won't be something that gets you fired. So for me, at some point during a hard conversation with my team, I often end up telling my hammer story. And I'll probably go into more details of the hammer story in another episode that I will share later. But what I want to say now about that is essentially the story was about me, early 20s, having a really harsh approach in leadership to the point where, yes, I got the nickname Hammer. And not only did I get the nickname Hammer, I was actually very proud of it until an elder pulled me aside and had me see how my way of being was hurting others. And I didn't and maybe never would have realized that until that elder pulled me aside. And that moment not only changed my leadership style, it also had me realize in a very visceral way how we do a disservice to others when we are not honest with them about how we experience them. Now, the A is for appreciation. So, usually mid conversation, towards the end, is around the time to intentionally and organically have the A for appreciation, acknowledging and appreciating them and their potential. In a workplace scenario, I have said, I see you as an executive director one day, but this behavior is getting in the way. Or, you bring great ideas and support your team, but this issue is blocking you from being a top performer. So make sure that it's something that's real and resonates for the person and that it gives them something to aspire to on a deeper level. And they will know if you're just blowing smoke, because if so, it won't resonate and then it just falls flat. And this goes a long way for building connection because if it resonates, then they will feel seen. Now, closing the conversation. Be okay with the conversation not ending with the, oh, yes, I see the error of my ways. You are right. I was wrong. I will change. Thank you. Don't hold your breath for that response, right? Especially with, though, I don't know, say you're a significant other. But what you are doing is planting seeds. You may need to nurture them with more conversations. Also, be mentally prepared for the person to not like you very much afterwards. Maybe a little scarce in seeing or hearing from them, but deep down, there is usually some level of respect that is being created and eventually the connection. If you're a leader, remember, you much rather have them respect you and not like you than like you and not respect you. And if you're a recovering people pleaser like I am, that's a tough pill to swallow. And that likely will be another episode. Why people pleasers have the worst time initiating hard conversations. I do want to share, though, my experience that eventually I've had people come to not only like me, but admire me as I was willing to do something maybe no one else has ever done for them. I can also share in having deposits in the trust bank with my teenage son and sharing my own missteps and low self esteem moments that I've experienced at the exact same age points that he's gone through in childhood, that it actually has brought us closer together and created a relationship where he tells me a lot more than average kids tell their parents. Lastly, after the conversation, if these hard conversations are happening in an intimate relationship and it's not getting any better after multiple conversations, you may need to make a decision. You may want to utilize therapy or coaching or consider parting ways, but always stay anchored in your intention, which is to build connection and know vulnerability builds bridges. And often in those intimate relationships, we stop being vulnerable out of fear of protecting our heart. In a workplace scenario, if after several hard conversations, the person still continues with the behavior with little to no change, you may also need to get more D for direct and just say, this needs to change. And if after several conversations, there's still little change, you may have to come to the conclusion that it's not a good fit to keep that person as part of the team. So let's recap the HARD framework. H for heart, truly wanting what is best for them. A for appreciation, acknowledge and speak to their potential. R for real, share your own real story. D for direct, be straightforward about the issue. So thank you for listening to Talk to Connect. If this episode resonated with you, Be sure to follow my podcast and share it with others. And if you got a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode, you can email me at michelle@letstalktoconnect.com. That's Michelle, spelled Michell. So that's two L's, no E on the end, at letstalktoconnect.com. And just know that every hard conversation, when spoken with heart, appreciation, being real and direct, strengthens your personal and professional relationships. And remember, go hard and connect. Thank you for listening to Talk to Connect. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to follow or subscribe to my podcast and share it with others. A new episode will drop the fourth Tuesday of every month. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer on a future episode, email me at michelle@letstalktoconnect.com. That's Michelle, spelled Michell. So that's two L's, no E on the end, at letstalktoconnect.com. So let's continue talking to connect and create transformation in our personal and professional relationships.